Well, hello, and welcome again to the 2012fad.com. I will be your host for this evening, and my name is Charlie Blue Hawk. Last night we talked about walk away, run away, and how even though those two concepts sound identical, they're very, very different. Walking away from a situation where you know that nothing good will come of it, no amount of your effort, your time, your love, your compassion, your tolerance, your patience, your understanding will change anything in the people you're trying to deal with. And you finally realize that the more you give of yourself, the more they take. And the more you give of yourself, the more, well, despised the people that you're giving to find you. There's something in the human condition that sees kindness and compassion and tolerance and patience as a weakness, at least in Western culture. And I've seen this repeatedly in my life, and especially in the United States, and even worse in this god-awful place called New Zealand, where the more tolerant you are, the more patient you are, the more understanding you are to people, the more they take advantage of you or feel that you can be taken advantage of. And they simply will take and take and take everything you're willing to give. And at that point, you realize that nothing you do will make a difference. And so you simply walk away. It's a conscious decision because you know nothing will change. Now, running away, that's much different. That's completely fear-based. Fear all of a sudden grabs you, takes control of you, and you go running into the night screaming. All of a sudden, you're no longer a human being. You're just a frightened animal. And that's how our masters want us to be. They want us to be frightened animals because to our masters, that's what we are. We're animals at best. And when we're frightened, that's when our masters are in ecstasy. They're in joy. To them, our fear is food. Our masters want us to be stampeding like frightened cattle. Because when you run away, it's all fear. There's no thought, there's no emotion. It's just fear. I don't think of fear as an emotion. I think of fear as ignorance or a lack of consciousness, conscious awareness, knowledge. So that's the difference. Walk away of your own free will, conscious decision. Run away. You're in fear. And at that point, yes, our masters will shoot us in the back and really enjoy it. Because if we do, you and I, if we actually do create the universe with our thoughts, if you or I are the power source for the universe or the power source for a computer program that we happen to be trapped in, either way, you and I are important. Our masters are not. They're simply parasites. And if they can cause you to run away in fear, then they can shoot you in the back and laugh. Because to them it's fun, it's enjoyment, it's nourishment. And, so that's why I thought tonight we would chat about time to grow up. Not certain if we're all children here, and that's why we're still on this world. I'm just not certain. I don't know. For myself, I'm still asking questions. Is this universe a real place? Or is it a computer program and we're all lying on couches on a university somewhere plugged into a machine, living entire lifetimes in an afternoon and then waking up and going to lunch? Is this universe real and we're simply moving from dimension to dimension? Do we live in multiple dimensions simultaneously instead of dreaming at night fantasies It's actually our conscious mind recompiling every night, because our consciousness lives simultaneously in so many different dimensions, so many different realities. We have to sleep at night just so our mind can put itself back together again so it can function the next day, which is why people go insane if they don't get sleep. I vaguely remember a scientific study stating that the human body had no physical need for sleep. That was simply a mental function, where our brains have to reset, reformat? That doesn't sound right. Recompile. So maybe you and I live in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and at night our mind processes all of the information it gathers from living simultaneously in all those other dimensions. I have no idea. I'm still asking questions. I'm not certain if I'm growing up myself, but I think asking questions really is the first start. A long time ago, the definition of education was a log sitting in a forest, where the student sat on one end of the log and the teacher sat at the other end of the log, and they just asked each other questions. Books were not really there so much as the passing of knowledge back and forth, because the very old learn from the very young, and the very young learn from the very old. Where I am in Europe now, there's these two beautiful sisters. One, I think, might be 3 years old, and the other one might be 12 years old. I don't speak their language, and they don't speak mine, but we seem to get along pretty well. And whenever I'm sitting in the basement, which is the only place the internet works here, I sit in the communal kitchen, and we talk endlessly. And we seem to communicate, and I learn so much from them, especially the little one. She's 3. And she's breathtakingly beautiful and fun and full of life, and I learn so much from her every single day. It's astonishing to me. So I don't know if I'm growing up, but I'm certainly learning a lot. In the last year, for example, here in Europe, I have learned about going to bed hungry every night for months at a time. I've learned about being homeless, where I was homeless for 2 days. And I learned about, well, being homeless doesn't frighten me anymore. If it happens again, okay. And if I end up going hungry again, doesn't frighten me anymore, okay. And if it's time to die, I know how to do that too. And the concept of death doesn't frighten me anymore. Okay, time to die. All right. I've spent my whole life trying to make a difference. And from my point of view, I've failed miserably. I've been in international corporate and IT management consulting for 25 years now. Can't seem to find a job. Well, I can't find a job. That's a statement. Because now I know too much to be hired. Wow. That's something I never thought about. Being too overqualified to be employable. Who would have thought that? And out of the 30,000 plus listeners I have on the show, only one of you stepped forward and did something real for me. The lady I call my beautiful guardian angel in the great state of Wisconsin, who's my first corporate sponsor. And out of her kindness, her compassion, her caring, her giving, I'm not homeless. And I don't go to bed hungry, and I can do these shows. But one thing I have discovered, and I use the word, the phrase, at this time, or I think I know, that there's something about the human condition where if you give them something for free, they don't value it at all. The concept of the log in the forest with the student on one end and the teacher on the other. And depending on your point of view, who is who, that's the question. That's lost all meaning in our culture. Giving and receiving freely. Knowledge, wisdom, a place to live, food to eat. The things that are important in the world, we don't value as Westerners. I hope Eastern people do. I've never been in Asia, so I cannot have an opinion, but I can hope. And I have to learn to stop hoping. That's a bad thing. But because of one kind and gracious and compassionate and caring lady in the great state of Wisconsin, I continue. And what that, again, has taught me, I think, is again that people do not value what is freely given, out of love, kindness, compassion, whatever. I was going to lecture you about being children and being selfish and arrogant, but then I realized that isn't really the case. The truth of the matter is I, for whatever reason, seem to live in the future. And I'm 52 years old, and I've cried myself to sleep alone too many nights, too many decades. Never could figure out why. It's because I live in the future. And so I live the nightmare before you're even aware of it, no matter what I do or what I say. This is my second attempt at trying to reach you, the human race. And the first attempt failed miserable. Finally just put the episodes up on YouTube and forgot about it, and then finally just deleted them from there because nobody cared. So today I'm talking to more than 30,000 people around the world. And I realized that whatever I said to you about being children, about being selfish, about being spoilt, about taking things that are given to you for free and taking them for granted and not bothering to do anything about it, that's unfair, honestly. Because the human mind can only do so much. It can only process so much information. It can only conceptualize so much. And all the decades that I've cried myself to sleep at night, in loneliness and fear and terror and worry, that's over. I know it's over because this morning I just started crying because I was actually happy. Because I think my nightmare is now over. I think that since I live in the future, apparently, and I can't reach you to do anything, at least I tried. My conscience is clear. Because what I realized this morning is, my nightmare is over now. I'm no longer going to worry about anything. I'm not worried about trying to warn you, because I've tried. I'm not worried, because I might be homeless. My sponsor might suddenly go away, as so many other people have gone away in my life who I counted on. And I might be homeless in a few days. Or I might be starving in a few days. Or I might simply die of hunger sitting in some European city. None of that bothers me anymore. None of that bothers me at all. Because now I understand. Now I know how to deal with it. And being in this world isn't that big a thrill for me, to be honest with you. It never has been. 52 years of the same nightmare, alone and frightened, scared, just not a big thrill. But now I know how to stop it, how to end it. And at that point, it's my decision. This is something that our masters can't take away from me. I can leave here whenever I want. So I'm not worried anymore. It's your turn, because my nightmare is over. Which means your nightmare's just begun. Now, I've told you everything I can think of, for now, that you're going to need. And it really is your turn. I tried to warn you. I saw it coming. I've lived it. And I tried to say, hey, you're standing on the railroad tracks. Hey, the train's coming. Hey, you might want to move. It's up to you now. But because all of this was free to you, you didn't have any value. To you, it was valueless because you didn't pay cash for it. It's one of the reasons I'm not putting up written text for these videos anymore, because you didn't appreciate it. You didn't care. Me? Well, so far I've written 3 books on the 2012fad.com, and I'll be selling them because apparently the only way that you'll actually listen to anything I say is if you pay $26.95 for the book. Each book. Or you pay $10.99 for the ebook. I'll get around to it. Putting them up, I mean. But it takes money to, file copyright. It takes money to file ISBN. It takes money to convert the books to ebook format. It takes money that I don't have, but I will. And when I do, you can buy everything that I've told you in a book, and then maybe it'll have value to you at that point. Because apparently simply sitting on a log in a forest, you at one end, me at the other, and we're trying to teach each other what we know about the world, you don't conceptualize that unless there's cash involved. So, okay, that's fair. Because my nightmare is over. Yours is starting. Not my problem. It's yours. And so since the human race has been on this planet for 2.5 billion years, and yet every 32,000 years the planet flips end for end, just what it does. And those of us who were smart enough to figure out that the universe is electrical, that traveling from world to world, not a big issue, you just need to know how. So the people who grew up, quote unquote, left. Because, hey, who wants their planet to flip end for end every 32,000 years? Who wants to live with our masters, who were not even scum of this earth? They're just parasites. They actually are soulless things. Who wants to have them in the same neighborhood? So those of us who actually bothered to pay attention, they left. And who did that leave behind? You and me, the children. Those of us who were too dumb or cared so little we couldn't be bothered to leave. And that's where we are today. The nightmare is now yours. Enjoy. Now, normally I have a closing that I've used up till now, and I thought about it. I think a lot. I ask questions. I can't help it. I ask why. And that drives, of course, criminals crazy. And liars. Liars hate it when you ask why. And just remember, if you ever doubt what someone's telling you, just remember, you say, I listen to what you say, then I watch what you do. Liars really hate that. So anyway, there's this ancient saying, I believe it's Celtic, Irish actually. And it always meant the world to me. And I've only actually used, whether it's a greeting or a farewell or a prayer, I'm not quite sure. But I've only ever used it twice in my life, and I only used it with people who I loved and who I thought loved me. I used it once in Southern California at the wedding of a friend who has since forgotten I existed. And I used it again here on a Christmas card to a beautiful, beautiful lady in Prague who I thought loved me and who didn't. And I'm wondering now that my nightmare is over, I'm wondering if it's appropriate to use with you. May you live as long as you wish. May you love as long as you live. For the 2012fad.com. www.charliebluehawk.com. This is Charlie Bluehawk. The 2012 Fad is brought to you by Coffee and Blood, Love Letters Between the Dead, a series of 5 erotica horror novels about a fallen angel finding his way back to regain his own soul, and how the CIA war against the human race. Their black magic captures and traps him in the body of a mind-controlled slave designed to hunt down and to kill their god, their Satan.